right, just making sure we are live here. Okay, wonderful. We are live. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today for day 2 of Boys Town History Week. My name is Gabby, joined here today with Dr. Patrick Tyler, and we are going to be discussing the history of translational research at Boys Town. For those of you who tuned in yesterday to our family home program tour with the McClure family, you may already be familiar with Boys Town's family home program, but we're here to highlight all aspects of Boys Town, and research certainly is one of the big ones. So today with Dr. Tyler, we're going to talk about his role at Boys Town as well as how Father Flanagan really spearheaded research and got the ground running for all of the incredible things that we do today, research-wise and beyond. Dr. Tyler, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Gabby. Thanks for the opportunity to be here.
Of course, it's great to have you on. Tell us more about yourself and your role at Boys Town.
Sure. So I'm the Senior Director of the Child and Family Translational Research Center. I've been here at Boys Town 23 years. I started out on the clinical side, so I was a clinical director, and you mentioned the McClures, and you had a tour of their home yesterday. I was actually their clinical director when they started here at Boys Town, and then got involved in research in 2008 as we started working on our aftercare program called On the Way Home, and then was involved in kind of helping to start our Center for Neurobehavioral Research in 2012. And then I've been the director here at the Child and Family Translational Research Center since 2020. And our center is here to support all of our youth care programs. So our residential programs, our school-based programs, and our family-based programs, not just here in Nebraska, but across the country. So we're able to get involved in supporting family teachers like the McClures and giving them some of the data they need to help the kids and families.
Yes, wonderful. So before we begin our chat, let's define what is translational research.
Yep, good question. So my favorite definition, and this isn't mine, but translational research is the science of putting science to use.
Mhm.
So that's our ultimate goal, is we want to conduct research that's going to be used to help children and families. Traditionally, research has been done and then pushed out to practitioners with the hopes that it'll get used. Here at Boys Town, we have an approach that we call practice to research and back to practice approach. So what we do is we involve the kids and the families and our staff in the research process. So the research questions, our research agenda really comes from them, right? It's problems that they're facing and that we need solutions to. And so then we involve them from the very beginning in research. So we work with them through the research process. We're not doing research on them, we're doing research with them. And then the results can get back to them, to our kids, our families, and our staff much quicker. So it just speeds up the process of getting science used.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great to hear because I think so often when people think of research, they might think of, a scientist in a lab or some really thick textbooks sitting in a library for people to read. But research at Boys Town is so, so much more than that. And to be able to do the research and then fully use it with our children and families to help them have better outcomes is wonderful. So we'll be talking more about that today.
That's perfect.
Yeah. And before we do, I want to remind everyone, I have it on the video, but I'll call it out too, that we are doing a live giveaway. We're doing a giveaway every day this week during our lives for History Week. So if you want a chance to win a new Boys Town t-shirt that we just recently made, it says support second chances, and a Boys Town scarf from our gift shop to keep you warm this winter. All you have to do is like this video and leave a comment. You can comment why you support Boys Town, what aspect of Boys Town history you're wanting to know more about, really anything, questions for Dr. Tyler, and we will draw the winner by the end of the day today, October 22nd. All
So
right.
I'll say that I saw the scarf in the gift shop the other day. It's very cool. So yeah, it's a good
That's
gift.
great. Yeah, it is. I tried to think, okay, what would people want going into the fall? And I saw those too, and I have to agree.
Good idea.
So Boys Town was founded in 1917 by Father Edward Flanagan, and he really conceptualized translational research. How did he do that, Dr. Tyler, and how would he use it in his life-saving care for boys in need?
Yeah, so like you said, Father Flanagan was kind of a researcher at heart, in addition to being a Catholic priest. So everything we do today started with him.
Mhm.
In 1939, I'm going to read this quote to you. Father Flanagan said, "I like to think of Boys Town as an experimental station in youth work, as a starting point from which adults may gain a better and finer knowledge of the problems of youth and treatment of difficult cases which may arise." In 1939. So he was already thinking about how he could work with the youth to try and solve the complex problems that they were facing. And he did that in a variety of ways. I mean, he researched where the kids were coming from and their backgrounds, which we call assessment today, right, to assess their needs so that he could better address those. He instituted a self government system, so he allowed the boys to govern themselves. And so then the boys were able to work together to solve some of the problems that they were facing. And then he learned from the boys how they solved those. And then he stayed in contact with the boys after they left. And today we call that aftercare and kind of ongoing support and services. But he wanted to make sure that they were becoming good citizens and if there were things that he could do to improve for the current boys that were living with him. And he learned that through the boys after they left. So it's been in the Boys Town DNA from the very beginning. And we're still trying to catch up with some of the things that Father Flanagan was doing.
Mhm. Yeah. What are the primary goals of translational research at Boys Town, and how do they continue to align with that mission laid out by Father Flanagan?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, we want to make sure that the research is being used. And so, we partner with all of our programs, our practitioners, our kids and families to identify what questions they have, what problems they're faced with, and then come up with those solutions. And then we build systems. So once we've identified those solutions, we want to create those systems so that everybody can use that. And so we get those systems into our programs. We do routine data collection on all of those kind of risk and protective factors that we know. The risks are the things that kind of lead to our families facing the problems that they faced. The protective factors are the things that we can strengthen to try and prevent those problems. And so we get that data into the hands of our staff, our kids, and our families so that they can learn from that information and try and strengthen, all of those things in their family. And then we also want to evaluate the outcomes. We want to make sure that the things we're doing work and are producing the results that we expect. And through that, we have to make sure that the programs, when they're designed to be effective, we want to make sure that they're implemented correctly. So
Mhm.
we have a lot of systems to make sure that the staff, know what they're doing, that, the aspects of the model are in place. We call that fidelity. So it's staying true to what works. And so these feedback systems, these data systems are kind of how we support the programs to make sure that things are working. We're getting the outcomes we expect. And then if things aren't working, then that's how we kind of look for, okay, new innovations, or maybe society is facing a new problem. How
Mhm.
do we use the data to inform us of what that problem is? And then again, we work with the kids and families to identify those solutions. So it's a back and forth process that we use. It's called an iterative approach. And by getting everybody on the same team and the same page, then we're able to work together to address what society needs.
Mhm. And that's something that I think is so special about Boys Town is that we're always evolving. So even though the model may have been developed years and years and years ago, we are always taking a look at, just as what you said, what are families and teens and kids facing now that we need to maybe fine tune or create a new resource to look at helping them. And one of the examples I'm thinking of would be during the COVID pandemic and the big crisis that we had with mental health. And Boys Town really dug deep to look into, okay, why are children across America struggling with mental health? What is isolation doing to their mental well being? How can we research that and use it to, in turn, care for those same kids and families that are struggling?
Indeed. Yeah. One of the studies that we worked on last year was talking to teachers across the country about those challenges that you just talked about that they were facing in the classroom with the increase in emotional behavior problems from students as a result of some of the social distancing and the pandemic. We wanted to learn from them, okay, what techniques were they using during the pandemic and after to be able to address the needs of those students. And that study was funded by the Department of Education. But then as a result, because we worked with those teachers, we were able to put together a tip sheet or some techniques that they found helpful that we have on our website so that other teachers can use that information to be able to help students today. And so it's kind of that example of tapping into the information from
Mhm.
our teachers so that they can help other teachers. And that's really the whole purpose of translational research, is we can get that information back out so that's used in real time to help our students and our families.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a great one. What other translational research projects are in the works now too?
Yeah, so we've also been working with our family teachers and foster parents to kind of figure out the secrets to retention. The caregivers, those that are in charge of taking care of our kids and our families, it's very demanding work. It's very stressful work, and we want to figure out what are some of the keys to longevity. How do you sustain yourself and being able to do this work? So we did focus groups and surveys with our family teachers and our foster parents, and gained a lot of great insight that's helpful for all professionals in the helping profession and for parents as well. And so that was a study that was very exciting to do here at Boys Town, and we're trying to share that information with other professionals. And then in terms of resilience, I mean, that's another area that Father Flanagan was very keen on, strengthening the boys so that they could overcome adversity and bounce back from some of the challenges that they faced. We've been working with our youth to identify different tools and identify ways that they overcome the challenges and adversity in their lives. And we're trying to look at that from different cultural perspectives. So based on where our kids come from, how do they tap into some of their family traditions and community traditions to be able to overcome some of those challenges? And so we're developing tools with the kids that parents and students can use to kind of help them identify some activities that they can use in difficult times. And so those are just some examples of some of the projects that we've been working on.
Mhm. Yeah, those are great. And especially keeping in mind that, Boys Town is always considerate of the fact that what works for one kid might not work for another kid. And so constantly reevaluating and looking at those processes and, just as you said, those needs of what kids are struggling with to cultivate the best outcomes, and knowing that that's something that's always in the works is something I know our followers will love to hear. So,
Yep, that's great. Yep,
yeah.
and we've been doing a lot of work just as of late internationally and trying to learn, from other organizations across the world, kind of how they're addressing some of the same needs with their kids and families in other countries and other cultures. And by that exchange of information, we've been able to learn some things and also share some of the things that we've found to
Mhm.
be effective. And so that's kind of an area that we're really trying to grow, is just those international conversations so that we can better help, the kids and families here in the United States, but then also help kids and families around the world. And we're finding that, there are these universal needs that all kids and families have. And oftentimes there's universal solutions to address those needs. And by, kind of exchanging ideas, we're getting to what some of those common universal things are. And so that's been exciting to be involved in that just over the last year. It's also given our kids an opportunity to meet kids from around the world
Yeah.
in similar towns like Boys Town. And so some of these are communities that were started. Some were started because their founder had met Father Flanagan
Mhm.
and started a Boys Town similar to ours here in Nebraska. Some were started because they watched the Boys Town movie, the 1938 Boys Town movie, and started a community for kids around those democratic principles where they were giving the children voice to be able to make decisions within their community, empower them. And these are in some countries where there wasn't democracy, in often cases there was a dictatorship within the country, but then you had this town of children who were governing themselves with democratic principles and able to kind of overcome some of the challenges that they were faced. So having an opportunity for our boys and girls here at Boys Town in the United States to talk to those boys and girls in these other countries, in Spain and Colombia and South America. Is great for these, children to be able to see what they have in common and to see the different ways that these communities have supported them, through them being able to govern themselves and learn the skills that they need to be, healthy and productive citizens, has really been exciting for us as researchers to be able to then, kind of observe and see how we can again learn from the kids on some of these things they're facing today.
Mhm. Definitely. I know Father Flanagan is surely smiling down from heaven, seeing the boys' towns of the world, as well as the model reaching, all corners of the world is very special.
Yeah, yeah, he inspired many, and we're still discovering all of those folks that he's inspired, over the last 100 years, and just trying to, link with them so that we can partner and collaborate, and kind of strengthen our ability to help kids and families.
Mhm. Mhm. So, in terms of measuring, how does Boys Town measure the success and the impact of our translational research programs? And what metrics do we use to evaluate those outcomes?
Sure. So we do that both internally and externally. So as I mentioned before, we have a lot of just systems in place routinely to be able to monitor the needs of our kids and families in real time and respond to those, through our different interventions. And then another important part is making sure that our programs are effective. And oftentimes we have our programs evaluated by outside researchers that will come in and evaluate the effectiveness to make sure that they're working. And so a lot of our programs currently are on what's called evidence-based clearinghouses or registries. That means that our programs have been vetted and evaluated independently by outside researchers and proven to be effective. And so we make sure that, our kids and families and stakeholders know, that our programs are on these registries. They can go to that to verify that the programs work. And then the important part of that is once we know what works, then we want to make sure that everybody continues to do that correctly, that those programs are implemented. This also allows other organizations outside of Boys Town to use Boys Town programs. And so we provide support through training and consultation and evaluation to other agencies to be able to use Boys Town programs. But again, we want to make sure that they're implementing those correctly so that those other agencies get the outcomes that we expect to see. So there's a lot of data that's involved in all of those systems to make sure that everything works.
Yeah, wonderful. What, well, we've talked about Boys Town history, but this question kind of focuses on the future of research. So, Dr. Tyler, what future directions or emerging areas of interest are being explored in Boys Town's translational research, and how might these shape the future of child and adolescent healthcare?
So I'll answer your question with a history question because what we've learned is that the more things change, the more they remain the same. So we're coming on a 50-year anniversary of a lot of things here at Boys Town, which is, the point of what Father Flanagan started has sustained over all of these years. And a lot of it's because of his successors, have maintained that focus on research and everything that's been done. Monsignor Hupp in the 1970s here at Boys Town saw that society was changing and the boys that were here at Boys Town, were facing, some different challenges with substance use, an increase in divorce in families, a lot more poverty, a lot more kind of traumatic experiences. And so he had to figure out a way to adapt the community of Boys Town to meet those needs. And so he brought researchers from the University of Kansas who were developing a model called the teaching family model to Boys Town to see how effective that model would be, here. And so we are celebrating the 50th anniversary of the University of Kansas bringing that teaching family model here to Boys Town. And so we're in the process of saying, okay, what have we learned over the last 50 years, with this model? Because it's the core foundation of everything we do across all of our service array in our communities and our schools and here on our campus. So it's neat to see that, Monsignor Hupp had to figure out how to use research, to address the needs of the kids. At the same time is when girls were coming to Boys Town. And he referred to that as an experiment himself because a lot of people told him that was a bad idea to bring girls to Boys Town. But he said it was a good experiment that worked very well because the boys actually behaved better when the girls came to Boys Town. Another interesting thing he did is he asked the girls when they got here if they should change the name of the town. And some people had suggested that they call it People Town. And he talked to the girls and said, I'm going to let you decide. And the girls said, no, we don't want it to be called People Town. We want to live in Boys Town. So again, he empowered them to have that decision. But because he experimented with that, now we have boys and girls that live here and are able to benefit from those interactions. And it's just kind of neat to see just that evolution. At the same time, the Institution for, or the Institute for Communication Disorders was started there in the 70s. So you had all these things happening in the 70s that were coming into this 50-year anniversary. Um, if you fast forward then to Father Peter, who followed Monsignor Hupp, he really took the Boys Town model to the rest of the country. And so he wanted to see, how does this work in other parts of the United States? And as you mentioned earlier, okay, it worked here in Nebraska, in the heartland, right? How does it work for families in Florida and Nevada and New England and throughout the country? And so that was an experiment too, to see, are there things that need to be changed so that it can meet the needs of families across the country? And he really helped to grow, kind of our service array. And then, of course, Father Bays came in the early 2000s and really helped us focus on the evidence base of our programs. And then he started, our neuroscience research in 2012, which brings us to the current. And so now we have this cutting edge science in our Institute for Human Neuroscience, where we're able to look at, how brain development affects, children and their emotional and behavioral needs. And so we partner with them, all the different research centers that I just mentioned, all partner together. We all collaborate together to be able to get a better understanding of all the needs of kids and families. So to come to your question, I thought it was important that the history just continues to unravel as we speak, that we're coming into this 50th anniversary and we're learning how now we have new needs that are facing kids and families. And so because we have the neuroscience and we have all of this other technology, one of our current projects is to understand the impact of social media and kind of the digital space on child development and what families are facing. So we're actually working with our information security team that has the expertise on how to navigate all the securities and those types of things around the digital space. Our Institute for Human Neuroscience is looking at the impact of social media on brain development. And then we're talking with our kids and we're finding out from our youth and students how social media is impacting them, both good and bad, and trying to understand this new community that, our students and our children, our families are trying to navigate, and trying to use that research so that we can better inform them through education and give them the skills they need to be able to navigate that successfully. But all of that is based on this long history of research and evolution, and not giving up on the things that work, but also being able to adapt to the changes in society. And so we're fortunate that we have that kind of in our heritage to stay focused on that. And now we have all this cutting edge technology to inform us in ways that Father Flanagan didn't have over 100 years ago.
Right. Yeah, we have a question in our comments related to that is, are there any AI applications in this or potentially other areas of Boys Town translational research?
Yeah, great question. AI is still something to, be understood. It's got a lot of benefits, but it can also have a lot of pitfalls. So we're trying to make sure that we understand the science of AI very well. It can be misused. It can provide, the wrong results if misinterpreted. So we want to make sure that it's done ethically and in a rigorous way. But we understand that there's a lot of benefits. It can save a lot of time. It can be a good assistant. AI is only as good as the information that goes into it. And so we want to make sure that our AI that we use has the right information that goes into it, so the right information comes out. But that's a work in progress. We're definitely looking at it, but we're doing it in a cautious and methodical way, I will say.
Yes, stay tuned to Boys Town History Week or History Week Translational Research Edition 50 years from now, and we'll probably have so much more to talk about beyond all of the things that we discussed today, and
That's right.
just keeps going. So, Father
The,
Flanagan,
the AI will do it in a much more entertaining way than I am, I'm sure.
a robot will probably replace me talking. So.
That's right.
Wonderful. Well, Dr. Tyler, this has been really, really educational. And, so often when we see the name Boys Town National Research Hospital and Boys Town in general, but learning more about the behind the scenes research that goes into it has been wonderful.
That was my pleasure. Yeah, thank you for the time. Thanks for everybody that tuned in.
Yes. And if you'd like to learn more about translational research at Boys Town, we do have linked above more info on our translational research as well as several publications. So you can click that link and explore some of the publications we've done in the past. And stay tuned on social. Oftentimes we post a Factual Friday, and those are quick little info bites from our translational research department. So
Thank you for promoting that.
of course, of course. Stay tuned tomorrow during our next History Week Live. We'll be live with Joni and Isaiah, who are a family that received Boys Town services, and we'll be live with them at noon. See you tomorrow, everyone.